So I'd like to start by really unpicking what gaming and esports is, because I feel like it's terms that are bandied about. The scope of the opportunity sounds huge, but I don't really feel like anyone really understands what the two are. Steve, I want to start with you, because obviously looking at the gaming perspective and then kind of the proportion of esports within that when it comes to the Twitch platform. So if you could kick off kind of with what gaming is to Twitch.
Yeah, so there's an important line of difference between gaming and esports. So esports is competitive gaming, right? So people are getting really excited about esports at the moment. You know, there's a lot of buzz around it. A lot of brands are making investments in that space. There's a lot of talk about, you know, the kind of typical age of viewers that are watching traditional sports and how they're getting older and older. And of course, esports is attracting that younger generation in. So of course, it's very attractive to brands and advertisers. Gaming is the sort of big umbrella under which esports sits. So when you're looking at a platform like Twitch, esports forms a very important part of the community aspect of Twitch. And what I mean by that is big esports tournaments, or, you know, any size of esports tournaments really, because it is about, you know, the kind of communities and those moments in time, will bring people together to share those moments in time, okay? But when those esports tournaments have ended, those users will then kind of dissipate across Twitch into their existing communities and carry on watching gaming or streaming gaming, and just kind of like hanging out and being a part of their tribe and a part of their community. So on Twitch, esports is an important part, but it probably is about 10% in terms of advertising opportunities of our overall scale.
Thank you. And then Damien, from a Facebook perspective, if I think of gaming on Facebook, I think of endless Farmville requests. Mm-hmm. But it's obviously a lot more than that. So what does gaming constitute within the Facebook platform?
Yeah, that's quite a dated perception, Lindsay.
I do apologise for that.
I mean that in a good way.
I see. I feel like I'm probably not alone in that, though.
No, but it's moved on a hell of a lot. So the best way to describe it is take it from the top. This is a $100 billion industry now, twice the size of the music and movie industries combined. Going down a level, you think about the key players. There are, you know, the likes of Tencent generating $16 billion per annum, roughly, in revenue. Individual titles that, you know, in less than a year will generate more revenue than like a huge movie franchise like Lion King has done in 22 years. It's very big, but at the same time, it's very advanced. The marketers in this space are probably at the kind of bleeding edge in terms of the use of data, and very, very advanced kind of predictive models. So from a Facebook perspective, and I run the advertising business there, is that scale obviously translates to significant marketing investment, but perhaps more interestingly for the people in the room, the kind of the fabric of the industry and how advanced it is very valuable to us as an organisation, because working with those partners, you know, we're learning a lot from them, to be pretty frank.
Interesting. And then to kind of move back to the esports side of things, I mean, Lars, drone racing, it sounds pretty cool. I'm not saying what you guys do isn't cool, of course, but it's quite an interesting subset of the entire gaming thing, and then drone racing, sort of one specific community within the esports arena. How did it become popular, and kind of how is the audience of drone racing changing and evolving?
Well, many people say that drone racing is part of esports. I don't see that, because we do real gaming, and it's not electronic. Of course, we work with technology, because the quadcopters, they have a lot of technology in it, a lot of software in it, but it's not the same as using a PlayStation. So for me, it's totally different. And this new sport is only about 3 years young now. It came from the RC cars and RC planes and copters. And then all of a sudden the drones became popular, like the Phantoms, etc. And then those guys said, hey, we can also do some crazy stuff with drones. And then they created the racing drones. So this is really like a young sport. And things are still developing from the sports side, as also from the fan side. When you look now at fans, they usually are about 10 to 16 years old watching the videos, But if you look at the athletes, the pilots, they are like 35, 45 years old. So that's really a big change there, big difference there.
And as the younger pilots are coming in, I'm assuming that the way that they're approaching self-promotion and kind of the way that they're probably much more socially active than the older pilots is probably bringing about a whole new audience and a whole new shift in how drone racing is evolving.
Yes, and that is especially also why we focus on the young pilots, because the good pilots at this moment, they are, like I said, 35, 40 years old, but they just want to race, and they have 150 subscribers on YouTube, for example, and they're really the top pilots in the world. Some of them are from the UK too. So they don't really like working on their online presence, while the young pilots, 2 weeks ago, I met one in Belgium. He was about 9 years old, Adam. And he's like, yeah, I'm doing this chat and I'm doing this picture. And you know, it's more in his system than the adults. So that will definitely create a new kind of heroes from the athlete side, and also will give more content to share.
Mm. And moving on to kind of the audience and the evolution of the audience within gaming, esports, generally, more gaming, how is that? I mean, when we think of the audience of gaming, do advertisers have almost like a snobby approach to gaming inventory? Like, oh, it's just kind of, you know, this sweaty person sitting in their basement, I don't think that's who I'm going to want to target? Or are they starting to realise that the audience is really kind of quite valuable to them now? Kind of how is that evolving? Damien, start with you.
I think, you know, Lindsay, you know, when you talked about Farmville, and you know, it's a misconception, I would argue, as I did. I think, you know, I didn't mean that in a rude way. No, but people's perception of a gaming audience is similarly kind of misconstrued often. You know, the gender side of it, people tend to think it's a young male audience. It's not. You know, there's a very significant share of female gamers. The types, we've done some really interesting studies, particularly, I mean, gaming isn't just, you know, stuff on your phone. You've got to think of the Xbox, the PlayStations, and the big studios. You've got to think of sports and things like that. Those audiences, we've done a lot of work on it and been able to segment and deliver what I'd call very, very powerful insights around the very different audiences that exist for those properties. And advertisers in the console space in particular have been very fast to move on creating creative, copy, different types of targeting that reflects the different nuances of those audiences. So it's gone on leaps and bounds, and it certainly isn't, you know, the ponytail in the basement.
Ponytail.
Yeah,
nice addition to my sweaty person sitting in the basement. They have to have a ponytail as well. And Steve, from a Twitch perspective, kind of how are advertisers approaching the kind of content they've got access to on the Twitch platform?
Yeah, I mean, snobbery, I'm not sure is the right word. Is definitely still an education role that Twitch can play in this space. About halfway through last year, we sort of realised that we were generating more of our ad dollars in the EU from non-gaming brands than from gaming brands. We kind of reached that kind of tipping point where we were having a look at the kind of brand count on Twitch. And it was spread across lots of different advertiser verticals. That was a key moment for us. We knew that we'd kind of broken through and sort of started to tell the Twitch story, which is about, like I've already alluded to, about communities. And so all the different games that are played on Twitch, all the different types of games that are played on Twitch, you know, they all have their communities and they all have their tribes. And, you know, there lies the interesting thing for brands to sort of kind of understand, because, you know, just having this umbrella term of gaming or just having this umbrella term of esports sort of doesn't really tell you the full story. It's like kind of assuming that, you know, a cricket fan is going to be the same as a football fan, as a badminton fan, as an athletics fan. You know, they're all kind of different, right? And that's what we kind of try and tell people at Twitch.
And from a monetization perspective, how is this content being monetized? I'm assuming there's video obviously must have a huge role to play here. And then kind of what is considered premium content, premium advertising in this space?
Yeah, for us, I mean, there's two parts to your question, I think, like how do we make money as Twitch and how do the creators make money? So, you know, we focus on three things for creators. I mean, it's amazing hearing Lars talk about a sort of switched on 9-year-old who's like that. But,
Terrifying, really.
Yeah, but we focus on three things, and we focus on trying to give creators fame, money, and love, and those are the three things that they absolutely crave and look for on Twitch. And we know if we can give them those things, then we'll be successful, and they'll be successful. And so we offer them lots of different ways to monetize on Twitch. So you subscribe to a channel on Twitch, and that's a financial transaction. Once you're made a Twitch partner, you can take a share in the revenue. You can sell merchandise on your channel. People can donate money to your channel. We have a virtual good called bits, which you buy and you can then use in a cheering process for something you're seeing. So there's all these different ways that creators can make money on Twitch. And obviously, as someone that's involved in ad sales, we're focusing very much on the video inventory that those streams unlock, because potentially, every stream that starts could potentially run a pre-roll in it. Only partner Twitch creators can activate the mid-roll pods. So what we'll never do is you might be watching something for like 5 or 6 hours, typically. We'll never interrupt that with an advert. But what we will allow creators to do, partner creators, is through an extension of DFP, is to launch a mid-roll pod when there's a natural break in their gameplay, or they need a comfort break, or they need something to eat, whatever. And so those are the advertising opportunities that we focus on, which is scale. And then the other one is sort of like a managed service around working with brands in a live environment. That's a slightly different sort of topic of conversation.
I mean, this poses quite an interesting point, because the audience we're talking about, kind of 18 or younger to 35-year-olds that are big in the gaming space, are the people that are also predominantly installing ad blockers across the wider digital ecosystem, across all their digital devices, because they can't understand, and we aren't explaining them very well, what the value exchange is between why they're seeing ads and what they're getting in return. But it sounds like, from a gaming perspective, you've already kind of come across that challenge, and you've almost, bat it out the park again and said they have a great understanding of what the value exchange is. They get to continue watching their favourite game player. Yep. What are we referring to them as? What are they called?
Creator,
gamers,
streamer.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Any of those? Yeah. But it feels like there's a greater understanding of what they're getting back for seeing that ad during that person's comfort break.
They totally get that, but they're still deploying ad blockers on their desktop experience. And some of the percentages that we see at Twitch, when I've spoken about it, like, just make traditional publishers faint, because in some markets, UK is probably around 50% ad block usage on desktop. France will probably be about 65. Sweden will be about 85. So you've got this really tech savvy young audience that are deploying ad blockers, and what we found is that even though we don't think, from all the research that we've done, Twitch is the reason for that, there's probably a bunch of other reasons why they're deploying ad blockers, even though they understand that watching ads is a key part of the way that a Twitch broadcaster will generate revenue. It's really difficult to get them to whitelist, like Twitch.
Okay, interesting.
So we've figured out other ways for that. But we'll
yes, okay. I'm sure there's some stitching involved somewhere. Damien, kind of coming to you about the whole gaming experience on Facebook. Are you finding as well that obviously you've worked in other parts of the business kind of before you went into gaming, so you know exactly the challenges that exist across the industry. Are you finding that the approach to it in gaming is slightly different, or because they're predominantly mobile first, they've had to come at it earlier and had to come up with their own solutions? Is there stuff that the rest of the industry can learn from gaming and kind of monetization in that space?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of angles on that, Lindsay. There's a relatively new format, rewarded video, which essentially the value exchange is pretty explicit to the gamer or the user.
So just to clarify, so you would watch a video, for example, and then you might get extra levels in return.
Yeah, virtual currency, or the latest sword, or whatever it is. And people can see that, by watching this ad for that fizzy drink or for that game or movie, there's a value in it, and it's pretty explicit. Because if you just take the assumption that no one's really a fan of advertising per se, no one has the scarf with ads on it. So you have to work really hard from the creative process, from the relevance angle as well, to make sure that the value's pretty much there. Otherwise, you'll see people will block ads, they'll resist ads, they won't engage at all. So I think rewarded ads is a very, very good example of how kind of that explicit notion that people are resistant to this. What can we do to maybe bridge that gap? The second thing is literally the relevance of the ads. I think you know, our own company has done a lot of work on driving hyper relevance and value when it comes to the ads that you see. And if you don't like them, you X them out, or you give a negative comment, that impacts on those ads. And you know, they have to pay more to appear. So there's you know, it's pretty disadvantageous to create bad ads on our platforms. You know, we encourage good ads, I would argue quite strongly. In gaming, I think we have very savvy users who are very, obviously, some of them are pretty much, they've grown up with literally the mobile phone being their primary point of internet access from the outset. With that in mind, I would also challenge the notion that they're all young. There's a very significant proportion of gamers who are way beyond the age of 35 and you know, and below. So it really, just big message out there, they're just not that basement dweller. They really are everyone. There's 2 billion gamers worldwide. Probably everybody here has a game on their phone. So we're all gamers.
We're all gamers.
And I'm probably the oldest, but I'm not trying to...
Don't sell yourself short, Damien. I'm sure you're not. And sort of going back to the audience and kind of the types of advertisers that you would see that are now interested in buying gaming inventory, they're seeing that's where their audience is. Kind of, has that changed? Are you seeing advertisers come on board now that you would never have considered touching gaming inventory a couple of years ago? And how does their strategy differ from where they're also investing their digital budget? Steve, let's try you for this one.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I won't sit here and reel off, you know, brand by brand who advertises on Twitch, but, you know, we try and keep an eye on new brands that are coming in. You know, we can have kind of like 3 or 4 new brands coming into Twitch every single week, you know, and that's really exciting for me. It's really exciting for anybody that's involved in advertising sales, because it means that the sales guys are doing a great job. But people are kind of listening and buying in and understanding to what we've kind of talked about, right? That, you know, that kind of preconception or that snobbery, as you've turned to it, actually isn't a truth. And these are just, you know, everyday people. There are 2 billion of them in the world. You know, they're pretty much everybody in this room. You know, gaming just happens, like particularly on Twitch, gaming just happens to be one of their passions. There's lots of other different passion points that you can use as a brand to communicate your message around. But gaming is now perceived as a genuine opportunity to do that. Mm.
And Lars, coming to you, and obviously Steve, this applies to you as well. FormulaFPV was bought by Zoom and TV, part of MTG. Kind of how has that helped with the heft behind being able to promote and grow your audience?
Well, this happened about a year ago, and they bought a minority share, so it's still my company.
My apologies, misinformation.
What is nice about collaboration right now is, of course, the power of Zoom and TV is the network. They work with a lot of talents, MCN. They produce a lot of content, and they aim for the Gen Z. And their new activity was events. And of course, we do events, so that was the connection there. So actually now, because we are with 2, I now have 250 new colleagues across the world. I've got people who can make videos for me, who have expertise in advertising, in media distribution, etc., etc. So those are things that I don't need to do by myself anymore. But I think the most important thing, and I also noticed that from the MTG side, is that they both want to create something new. That is not here yet, and that is a new future sport, the way that we call it. And we are just pioneering. We're just creating, we're just figuring out how we can create the new live sport experience that is new besides soccer and American football, etc., etc. So it is not directly that I can mention a couple of big advantages right now, but what I just see is that we are all really working, trying to create something new. And I'm here now with my colleagues of Zoom and TV UK. I've also worked with my colleagues in Brazil and in China and in Mexico City, and they're all very positive and they're all really in the flow of let's try make this work, and that's the same position that we are in as FormulaFPV. If it works, I don't know, but we're just working hard for it.
Interesting. And obviously, Steve, Twitch were bought by Amazon for shy of $1 billion. It's a hefty sum, but I guess it speaks to just how big an opportunity there is in gaming, and how kind of the big players out there are sitting up and taking notice. And Facebook, obviously, the behemoth it is anyway. Kind of the investment that's being made in gaming just shows, build it and they will come, and as they are still coming, you're obviously keeping on building it. Like, how is it going to continue growing? Are you seeing this? Are we seeing kind of like tenfold increases? Kind of what's the scale of how big it's growing on an annual basis? Steve, from a Twitch perspective?
Yeah, we continue to grow. I mean, the kind of approach that we're taking at the moment is quite interesting because, for those of you who don't know the Twitch background, it started life as Justin TV, which was, a kind of very robust live streaming platform where gaming was a very small part of all the different content that was around. And then Twitch grew out of that, and then the Amazon acquisition came. And now we're almost kind of going back to Justin TV days because we've started experimenting with the sort of relaxation of the guidelines around what content you could live stream. And a lot of that has been driven by sort of expansion into other markets. So Korea, for instance. So for Twitch to be successful in Korea, we had to relax our rules around non-gaming content because all the creators that we wanted to attract to the platform insisted that social eating was a part of their content programs. And so social eating isn't cooking shows; it's literally eating and connecting.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So social eating, and you've got to think about cities like Korea, where the Gen Pop's like 20 million. They've all come together in these huge conurbations. They're living in massive skyscrapers, and they're not necessarily coming and having the opportunity to form connections around moments in their life, particularly eating times, right? So social eating might be you sitting down, eating your dinner, live streaming that, whilst any number of people, it could be 5 members of your family, it could be 10,000 people, it could be 20,000 people, are sharing that experience with you. And they're chatting with you, and you're chatting to them. So that kind of, I know you're looking at me like really blankly.
I mean, I really
now,
am,
right?
because this just means nothing to me, but carry on.
I genuinely think this is going to be big globally outside of Korea, right? Because we have similar sort of conditions around society, but anyway. So one of the things that we're doing is kind of relaxing our rules around content, and the biggest growing vertical around content for us now is IRL, which is in real life. So people just streaming like literally any number of different things, like live travel vlogging. I came into the office the day before yesterday, and we have a big screen that has lots of different feeds going on, and I saw someone live travel vlogging. They were literally walking down the street, somewhere hot and beautiful, but literally walking down the street, and they had over 20,000 people watching them and sharing that experience. They're connecting with them, they're chatting with them through text and through voice, but that's like, that didn't exist a year ago on Twitch. So those are kind of, those are really interesting for us.
I mean, yeah, it points to the scope just outside gaming. It's becoming a common thing now to stream your lives, basically. Damien, give me some stats. Kind of what what gaming will mean to Facebook over the next few years.
Yeah, I think in the kind of the broadest sense, Facebook will be about kind of being the place where you find games, you discover games, you play games, you watch them, you share games. It's all that network. We're investing very heavily. You'll see things like Games Room, which is where you can download PC-based games. You see instant games on Messenger. We're seeing games played over 1 billion times on those kind of platforms. That's phenomenal stats, but it just shows large global embracement of very new behaviours. And that's fascinating.
You mentioned PC-based games. Is kind of PC coming back into fashion again in terms of gaming?
PC never went out. It's still very big business.
Shows a little I know.
Yeah, I mean the PC geek speak here is more powerful than your kind of standard Xbox or PlayStation console. PlayStation and Xbox essentially a streamlined UI for a PC. They still don't quite have the power at hand there. Xbox One X will be very very close to that with 4K gets very interesting there. But then I think the big growth trajectory and the very interesting thing for people in the room and for us is the move, particularly in the console and PC space, from product, i.e. boxes of green boxes for Xbox, blue boxes for PlayStation, to service. So you're seeing that, Xbox Live, PlayStation Network, these are, living, breathing entities with Xbox over 50 million monthly users on there. PlayStation 70 million plus. You're seeing EA, Ubisoft, these big studios. The majority of their revenue now is not boxed product; it is digital. So that's downloads, and it, the more you can see. I think it's all margin positive as they move to a digital product. That share growing, and that enables the digital marketing industry, if you want to use that umbrella term, tremendous opportunity, because you've got these amazing brand kind of advertisers, high production value, moving into the digital space because they want to see the connectivity between the engagement with those audiences and subsequently, did we sell anything? How long does this user stay with us? What's the lifetime value of this user? How do we keep, if we know who they are from an anonymized perspective, but they know who they're talking to in terms of audience cohorts, they can push stuff at you, products that you'll be interested in, and it will be this kind of laser-focused, high relevance approach to marketing. I think you'll see that more and more.
It sounds like, I guess it's immersive engagement, isn't it? And we're running out of time, but I do want to touch on that kind of the future when it comes to thinking about how VR and AR will impact gaming. And I guess the huge opportunity that exists for brands in that space, from the immersive perspective, kind of from a game perspective, it's monetized and how advertisers can reach their audience through those spaces. So just quickly, Lars, are you investigating kind of using VR technology for drone racing?
Yeah, we had an event in the Amsterdam Arena last June, and together with Samsung, we are now trying to develop a VR experience for people inside the stadium to get in the cockpit of the drone. So during the race, you could look around 360, and also to give the people at home who are tuning in during that event, wearing the same goggle, can also watch that same experience, but on their couch back home. So that's a development there. And of course, we are now integrating the first partners, brands, to give them the nice positions in the video there. It's still very basic, but we're trying to learn from what viewers like there and what are the best options for the brands to give them the branding within the video.
So it's virtual reality, but it's real. It's IRL, real reality.
Yes, it's real reality, and that is what people usually think with the FPV. They say, oh, so that is VR. No, it's not. It's just video. But now with our hopes that we can develop something with goggles, for example, with the Samsung Gear, that brings it back in your living room. And then we can create something VR that you're thinking that you're in the stadium there and you're on the pilot seat and you're really racing there. So, of course, we hope that this will work out.
Yeah, it sounds pretty interesting. And then just quickly, Damien, Steve, kind of where you expect VR and AR to go and kind of how brands can really make use of that in the future. Damien?
Obviously, we're pretty serious about the space with Oculus. Broadly, again, I think it's baby steps into billions of people, but also dollars. Pokemon Go, a lot of people have the wrong idea about that and how successful it's been. It's done over $1 billion in revenue in 12 months, and a lot of people thought that was a load of hype, and everyone jumped on it and then left it. They didn't. But it's also more than just kind of advertising and the revenue they're getting from different the kind of virtual currency side. They're driving footfall to big businesses. The McDonald's example was a fantastic one of what Pokemon Go could do. So really, really early days, but tremendous promise. Avoid the hype. Just have a very measured view on it. I think it's definitely got tons of legs, which is why you're seeing so much activity in the space.
Yeah, and Steve, Damien's saying avoid the hype. I guess that's something that kind of, talking of the hype around it versus kind of what's real versus virtual in that case, kind of, the opportunities there, and we're seeing some really good forays into it, but we need to kind of take a calm, measured approach, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you were, I attend a lot of the game conferences. I was at E3 in LA early this year, and, I was on the lookout for VR and AR stuff. And if you were a kind of doubter, you might have come out of E3 and said, well, VR's dead, because, there was not a lot going on. And I think, there's a few reasons behind that, in terms, if you're a large game publisher and you've got teams working on your various already successful gaming IP, taking some of that talent away and developing it and focusing it on gaming VR, when actually there's not many people using it yet because, the cost is prohibitive and everything else. The economics around that, I think, are what I kind of subjectively witnessed and have witnessed throughout the year around that. But, there's no doubt that, because of the immersive experience, there's a great opportunity for brand. I'm just not sure whether that's going to be VR. I probably think that it's more as you move towards augmented reality and that sort of blurring of the line between VR and AR. Companies like Magic Leap are the ones to keep an eye on. Not really sure how it's going to pan out yet, but not the way that everybody thought at the beginning anyway. Certainly around sort of everybody just playing VR games. That's not happening.
Okay, interesting. We have to leave it there, but I want to say thank you very much to Lars, Damien and Steve. Thank you, guys. I'm sure there's kind of lots more to come in this space, so keep a lookout.
Thank you.
Thank you.